The following program is a SUTV student production. The views expressed are not necessarily those of Salisbury University, the University System of Maryland, its regents, administration, officers, employees, or representatives.
Thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Pollitt.
Thank you.
And why are you running for a third term?
Well, you know, I've been the first county executive Wicomico County has ever had. The first term was kind of spent just transitioning to the new form of government, establishing the responsibilities of a county executive, getting our program in place. The second term has been pretty much dealing with the recession, just trying to keep everything in order to provide the services people expect and demand of us with greatly diminished resources. We've also been using the second term to make plans for what we're going to do for the county once we come out of the recession, once we hit recovery. How are we going to regain our place and prominence on the Delmarva Peninsula as the real hub of business, of education, of quality of life, that sort of thing. And so I really am looking forward to the third term when we actually bring it all back together again in recovery and reuniting our community stronger than it was before the recession.
Tell me about how you work with other cities within Wicomico County, such as Fruitland, such as Salisbury. What's that relationship like? How do the governments work together?
Well, there's a lot of opportunities for collaboration. Now, Wicomico County has 8 municipal governments, and they each have their own defined geographic boundaries. They each have their own amount of services. Now, Salisbury, Fruitland, and Delmar are pretty much full service in that they have their own police departments, they take care of their roads, they do pretty much everything that a full service town would. The county is a little more involved in towns like Pittsville and Willards, Mardella Springs, Hebron, Sharptown. Will help them with some of their permitting, some of their roads work, that sort of thing. The opportunity to collaborate, though, has probably never been more important than it is now, because after the recession, when we've had so many cuts in our budgetary opportunities, we've had to kind of leverage each other's assets, so that if the county has a piece of roads equipment, for instance, that one of the towns needs for a project, we can make that available to them. And possibly one of the towns, maybe Salisbury, has some things that the county could use temporarily, and rather than go out and spend taxpayer dollars to have the same thing that Salisbury does, then we would have a partnership with them so that we could all use our common resources to be a little bit more efficient and to be more careful with our tax dollars.
I know that you mentioned the recession being a big part of which you were working on this term, but in your 2 terms, what have been some of your other biggest priorities or initiatives?
Well, it's very important as the executive branch of the government to make sure that the services do follow along in a progressive way, and that people are satisfied that the money they're spending through their tax dollars is being well spent. We have core services such as public safety. Nothing is more important than keeping our community safe, and so we're very heavily funded in the Sheriff's Department, the court system, the State's Attorney's Office, the correction system. A lot of people don't think about all the money that it takes to keep the county detention center in business, and so we put a lot of effort into keeping our community safe. Right up there with that is public education. You know, nothing is more important than getting our children educated to the point where they can graduate from high school and go on to college or compete with kids from all over the world for the best jobs. So we want to make sure that the educational product that they get here in Wicomico County is not just sufficient, but it is more than adequate enough to have them go out and succeed. And then we have public infrastructure, our roads, our public buildings, the things that are the physical evidence of the county existence need to be paid for, and they need to be funded from year after year. And so it's constantly before us that in order to deliver the services of a quality that people expect for the taxes they pay, that we have to constantly be looking at those core services. And then we have all of the other things. We have parks and recreation, we have tourist opportunities, we have those quality of life issues that the county is involved with to promote us as a place to come and live and raise a family, do business, that sort of thing. And so all of those are resources that we spend every day focusing on and trying to improve so that we are the great place that we know we are.
Let's talk about one of those first points that you hit on, which is public safety.
Yes.
the crime rate in Wicomico County has been going down.
Yes.
But how do you plan on improving on that or continuing that downward?
I think whenever you deal with crime, you always have to, at some point, go down to the root causes. And so much of it is grounded in the economic state. There are people who turn to crime because they feel they have no other options. Obviously, there are other options. We need to show them to those folks. We need to give people the means to take a job opportunity rather than to spend their time associating with gangs and getting into the drug trade. When we were able to pick up some additional state money last year, I put it all in our budget for school safety. We gave the public school system about $3 million last year, in addition to what we normally fund them, just to improve school security, because it is important to keep our children safe. And so we invest in programs at our detention center to deal with recidivism. We're trying to get some of the people who made bad choices but aren't necessarily bad people. We want to show them that there are alternatives to a life of crime and work with the community to give them opportunities so that once they've paid their sentence, they've done their time, that they might have an opportunity to come out and get a job and not repeat that spiral.
You talk about the jobs and things like that, but what would you say to those that say that there aren't enough jobs here in Wicomico County and in the shore in general, you know?
Well, there are jobs. They may not be what we exactly want at that particular moment in time, but there are no bad jobs. You know, a job that produces a service or a product is a job worthy of respect. And I don't think we've ever been in a position to say that there are no jobs. Sometimes we do things that we might not really choose to do or want to do in order to put bread on our table. But I think we need to have respect for even what we consider the lowest job, because any job is a good job. Beyond that, though, I know what you mean. We need to create the kind of climate where business can succeed in Wicomico County. And that means creating a tax structure where business can take their profits from year to year and put them back into improving their product or hiring more people to expand the business rather than seeing it all go out the window in taxes paid. Some of the things that I've been able to do as county executive have been to create a separate classification of business tax, where once before it was tied to the residential property tax rate. There was a 2.5 times factor applied to businesses. Well, we separated those two taxes so that now our business community is actually paying less taxes today than it would have if we hadn't done that. We're eliminating an inventory tax, which is very expensive to businesses that carry a huge inventory. We're phasing that out over 5 periods, so eventually, or 5 years. So eventually that tax won't even exist at all. We also have a manufacturer's tax exemption designed to encourage manufacturing business to come back to the county. We've made that tax exemption automatic. So if you're in business as a manufacturer, that's a tax that has an exemption all ready for you. All you have to do is take it. And so it's about giving business the kind of climate that it needs where it can focus its efforts on its product and hiring people to take its product further. And that, along with, as I say, giving the kids the education they need to compete for jobs, I think is where we have most of our focus these days.
Okay. Let's talk about the university.
Yes.
How important you think the relationship between the county and the university is, and how you've tried to improve upon that relationship in your time in office.
Well, it's critically important, not just to the quality of life of our county, but as a real asset for our children. I'm a parent of 2 children. One of my children my son is a junior here at Salisbury University right now. He wants to go into sports broadcasting. So the programs here are perfect for what he wants to do, and I'm so glad that we're able to offer that right here in Salisbury for him. And going back to my thought about how we expand, how we think about our community, it's not just Salisbury University. We have UMES just a few miles south in Princess Anne. We have Warwick Community College here. By making education one of our top priorities and the opportunities, the doors that opens for our kids, I don't think there's a more noble calling You know, America's Promise has called Wicomico County one of the top 100 communities in the country for several years in a row now. 100 communities for young people. And that's the kind of thing that is reflected by where we put our priorities. And so I've always said that we don't want to be a town with a university, we want to be a university town. And that means that the culture and the impact of Salisbury University is felt throughout Wicomico County. We see it with the trolley system now that we've put in between the university and downtown as an effort to bring more young people into the downtown to support those businesses, hopefully eventually to have places to live downtown and just grow that community even more. And so I think the more that we can do, again, leveraging our respective assets to be more inclusive, more engaged with community and university, it's only going to be good for all of us.
Well, you just hit on something I wanted to ask you about, and that is this being a university town. And in that sense, many come here for an education, and then after that 4 years, or after they get that degree, they go back over the bridge. Some refer to it as a brain drain, but others don't really think that's a problem. You know, the town is the size that it is, and it is a town with a university in it. You know, it's a university town, and some think that's okay. So what do you think about that?
Well, I think it's important to have options. If students come to Salisbury to go to school and they get their education, some may want to go back to their hometowns and set up a family there and find a life there. What we're learning is that many of the millenniums these days are not necessarily interested in putting roots down in one particular location. They're more inclined to gravitate toward a quality of life, the kind of a place where they can feel free, independent, to be creative, to think about the things they want to do, to contribute. And I don't know that that's necessarily defined by one town or one state or one county. But the important thing is that we provide at least the option of staying here in Wicomico County. If somebody does come to Salisbury University and they fall in love with the community, I want there to be choices for them when they graduate, so that if they choose to stay here, there will be a place for them. There'll be an opportunity for a job and a place to raise a family, that sort of thing.
Well, do you think that option, that choice is here now for many students? I mean, especially, you know, you pay thousands and thousands of dollars to go to school here, and then, you know, you want to have a good paying job once you graduate. Do you think that option is here for many students?
It's here. It needs work. We need more. There is an issue, I think, with people leaving the area because they don't sense that there's a lot of diversity in the options and the opportunities. And that's one of the things that's a factor of the recession, where we have lost a lot of the momentum, I think, that Wicomico County may have had a couple of generations ago when we were really considered the hub of Delmarva. I think that is coming back. I think now that we've taken advantage of the lull in activity during the recession to redefine ourselves and to reinvigorate ourselves to making ourselves something that is competitive in the 21st century as far as being a place to live. You know, it's part of the character of rural America that you don't regard yourself in lofty terms. You know, you're more down to earth, matter of fact, practical. We're glad to have you, but you know, if you want to go somewhere else, that's fine too. I think we're changing our attitude now that we know that it's important for the lifeblood of our community to have new people coming in and diversifying our culture, diversifying our county population. And that means having things here to keep them. We have a long way to go to get to any ideal point there. I think we've got a good start, but that's something that we definitely have to make as one of our top priorities going forward.
Talk to me about the Wicomico River and where that stands on your list of priorities, cleaning that up.
It's very high. In fact, the state of Maryland passed legislation a couple of years ago that required counties to adopt a watershed implementation plan so that we can start addressing points of pollution across the Chesapeake Bay watershed, but within our own jurisdictions. Now, the initial assessment of that program showed that it was going to be very expensive to see all the way through. In Wicomico County, it was an estimate of some $800 million. We don't have that kind of money in Wicomico County, but rather than just wring our hands and complain about the problem being too large, what we've done is hunkered down and started identifying those areas where we can make a difference. So we have a number of projects now that we've budgeted money to go back and restore the area where the water is leaving the ground or the creeks and going into the rivers. And we've been able to do that with some grant money from the state that we match with local dollars here from Wicomico County taxpayers. And so it's our goal and it's our intention, it's our obligation to do our part. But then we also expect the other players along the Chesapeake Bay watershed to be doing theirs as well. There's a very huge issue in that whole conversation at the head of the bay, where the Susquehanna River empties into the Chesapeake Bay at the Conowingo Dam. Now that dam holds back an awful lot of sediment, pollution, nutrients and such that if they get into the bay, and they do, especially during large storm events, they can undo much of the progress that we can do locally along the way down. And so it's important that we have a statewide comprehensive approach to water quality improvement and not just expect counties with their limited resources to be the magic bullet that solves it all.
Looking back on your last roughly 8 years as county executive, what would you say is your proudest achievement? What have you done and or accomplished that you are just most proud of?
Well, there's a kind of a technical thing, and then there's a more, I don't know, more of a ideal, I think. I'm happy that we were able to get through the recession in good fiscal shape. We've been very careful about how we handled the public's dollar. We're very responsible. We have great respect for the fact that we exist, we work using the money that we tax our residents for. Our fiscal house has never been stronger. We have a good solid reserve fund. We don't waste money. We watch every penny. Our bond rating with the rating agencies in New York was just improved last year. They've upgraded us twice now since I've been county executive. Where that's important is having a stronger bond rating means when we go to borrow money to build a school, as we're doing with Bennett Middle School, a stronger bond rating gives us a better interest rate. And so the money that we have to pay for those loans is less than it would have been otherwise. And so I'm very happy that we have Bennett Middle School under construction right now, largely in part to the faith that Wall Street has in how we're handling the public's dollars, but also as a testament to the way this community does prioritize its needs with the children and with education. But beyond that, I'm particularly proud that my original campaign slogan, which became the theme of my administration, is building bridges, building community. You know, my job wasn't created as the result of some great intellectual exercise in the county. It really came about as a taxpayer revolution. When the county council went for a number of years without doing anything to adjust the tax rate to meet the needs of the time, so that in 1 year they increased the tax rate so substantially that people recoiled and said, "You've gone too far." And three things happened that year. They took the executive and administrative authority away from the county council and put it in the hands of a county executive. They instituted a revenue cap, saying that we can only bring in tax dollars from 1 year to the next at 2% or less by going by the inflation rate, whichever is less, the inflation rate or 2%. So there was a cap on the money we could raise. And then they totally eliminated another source of revenue, which was the transfer tax. That was all money that went into providing services. And so we started off not as something positive, but as a reaction to something negative. And so my whole effort has been trying to regain that public trust that county government can work for them, that we do respect the people we serve. And so we've gone out to bring more people to the table. We've built bridges to the minority community. We've built bridges to the agriculture community. We've built bridges to the business community, to the firefighters, to the seniors, to the school system, to the county council. Bridges from the executive's office to the county council. Just trying to get a sense of community so that we all take our responsibility seriously, that we all have a share in what comes from in what we make of Wicomico County. And I'm very pleased that we've had a lot of success in getting people to the table, and I think it's proving to work well.
Is there anything in particular that you wish you could have done a bit more of? Anything that any regrets, basically?
I don't think about regrets. You know, we've had a tough hand dealt to us this last term with the recession. You know, they tell me that unless you were alive during the Great Depression, there's really no experience or way to compare what we've been dealing with. There's no handbook on how to deal with the Great Recession. And so we've really had to scramble to try to keep services at a level high enough to keep people happy that they live in a good place where we do have good schools, and we do have good schools, and a place where it's safe. And as you noted, we are safe and we're getting safer. And so we're doing all of that, but it's the notion that if things were more like they were before the recession, you think about all the things I could be doing to do better. Maybe we would have more parks. Maybe we would have more money in schools so that we could pay our teachers better. We don't stack up very well in how we pay our teachers. If we had the money, I think I would like to, well, I know I would, but I think having more money to attract teachers and keep them here, the quality teachers that we need, would be much better than the way it is now. So yeah, in that respect, you know, I think of the things that we could do more of and do better if the economic times were all right, but you don't dwell on that. You make the best with what you have and look forward to a better day.
Finally, is there anything else you'd want to tell students or anyone at the campus community that could be watching?
Well, just that, as I say, I'm a dad of an SU student. I love the school. I have the highest respect in the world for Dr. Janet Dudley Eschbach. She is just a tremendous champion, not just for public education, but for community. And working with her has been a true joy. And she's attracted a crackerjack team of people around her that are all pulling together to build a true community. And it's not just confined by the walls and the boundaries of Salisbury U. It goes out into the community. And I'm very, very honored and grateful that we have a Salisbury University here, and whatever I can do to be useful to further the goals and the progress here at SU, I'm committed to that. And I always look forward to coming over and talking with the kids.
Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Eli, thank you very much. It's nice being with you.